Kenny, I am live.
I gotta catch up, man, so I catch up them numbers. You shouldn't be watching his channel. MMAWeekly.com.
Don't
Cut that part.
Never
Cut
trust
that
a
part.
guy that looks like that. Security, get him out of the room.
I know you can read my lips because I don't have a mask on.
Oh, you missed that.
Oh, it was long. It was on face.
Oh, yeah, he's very stylish. He's stylish. Scott, he's stylish.
Yeah.
Is it the mask?
Matches the mask and everything.
Yeah, I had to match the mask.
It's not a skin tighter.
Loud and proud.
That way, if he loses his mask, he just cut a new one out of his shirt pattern. See, you ain't got this in a field. MMAJunkie.com.
Kind of took 5 hours.
minute, or you want to go live?
Wait another 10 minutes.
For those listening on MMA Weekly, switch to MMA Junkie.
Basically, what I'm joking about is we're a little tighter than we have been here in UFC Apex today. Which is good. Here as well.
I was looking, I was like, why is it bouncing over? I was like, there. Why am I
I really know what's going on. It's crazy. It's madness.
I know, it's just
I'm still trying to get something. Put me a back.
you should only do that one hit, we're so close.
Straight back, in the black hat.
Go to your hot spot on your phone.
I do it right there.
You guys back to say that's something first. No, they're saying number one. Oh, yeah. Why would you tell me? Beats number four. Hey guys.
What, they made you wear that?
I had to do fucking headshots today.
Oh.
It's funny that you're
Like
on.
when I come downstairs in a collared shirt, like to go out to dinner once a year, my kids are like, "Whoa, dude!"
I know.
Is this Unk?
Well, when you have to wear a suit for a living, then when you're not working, you wear. I mean, I wear trash.
Like, people always laugh. I mean, the only time I put on a suit for CFFC, I'm like, dude, you pay me enough, I'll put on a suit.
Right.
You gotta pay me.
But like, I go pick up my kids. They're like, "Dad, did you wear that to bed last night?"
All right, thank you all for being here for the official weigh-ins for UFC 264. First athlete to the scale, one of the men around whom this fight card was built, former UFC interim lightweight champion, Dustin the Diamond Poirier.
156.
156, the official weight for Dustin Poirier.
Thank you, Dustin.
Next fighter to the scale, competing in a prelim live on ESPN in the UFC's middleweight division, Dracus du Plessis. The official weight, 185.5 for Dracus du Plessis.
Here we go. Five. Thank you, sir.
All right, next fighter to the scale, 13th ranked in the UFC's middleweight division, Omari Akhmedov.
Take it slow.
$185.5.
185.5, the official weight for Omari Akhmedov.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next athlete to the scale in the UFC's welterweight division, Nico the Hybrid Price. The official weight, 169.5 for Nico Price.
Thank you.
Don't play, boys.
All right, next up in the UFC's flyweight division, Zhalgis Zhumagulov.
Sorry about that.
125.5.
125.5 for Zhalgis Zhumagulov.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next fighter to the scale, competing live on pay-per-view tomorrow night, 5th ranked in the UFC's women's bantamweight division, Yana Kunitskaya. The official weight, 134.5 for Yana Kunitskaya.
Thank you, Yana.
All right, next fighter to the scale, set to make his UFC debut live on pay-per-view tomorrow night in the UFC's bantamweight division, Chris Mutino.
135.
135, the official weight for Chris Mutino. All right, next fighter to the scale, former world title challenger, 7th ranked in the UFC flyweight division, Jessica I.
$125 and a half. Yeah!
125 and a half, the official weight for Jessica I.
Here we go. 5. Thank you, yes.
All right, next fighter to the scale. He is one half of the featured prelim in the welterweight division, live on ESPN.
Go,
Max
baby!
Payne Griffin.
I cut a little bit more weight just so I could wear the AP, you know what I'm saying? But it's time, baby. Time today. I got time tomorrow.
71 and a half.
No. No. Almost
Just seeing if he was paying attention. It's 170 and a half.
170 and a half, the official weight for Max Griffin.
Good job. I told you to take that watch. That would have been over. That's a good cover.
Well done, Mac. Well done.
All right, next fighter to the scale. First fight of the night in the UFC's middleweight division, Hu Yatsong.
$185 and a half.
185 and a half, the official weight for Hu Yatsong.
Thank you. What's that?
All right, next fighter to the scale, charged with opening the pay-per-view tomorrow night in the UFC's bantamweight division, Sugar Sean O'Malley.
$135 and a half. Good head,
The
Sean.
official weight, 135 and a half for Sugar Sean O'Malley.
Thanks, Sean.
All right, next fighter to the scale in the UFC's featherweight division, we welcome back the Wizard, Ryan Hall.
$145.
145, the official weight for Ryan Hall. All right, next fighter to the scale, competing in a prelim live on ESPN in the UFC's middleweight division, Trevin Giles.
$185 and a half. Good head, Sean.
185 and a half for Trevin Giles.
Thank you, Travis.
All right, next fighter to the scale is weighing in as a backup for tomorrow night's lightweight main event. He is the former undisputed UFC lightweight champion, Rafael Dos Anjos.
Straight ahead, Artie.
156, the official weight for Rafael Dos Anjos. All right, next fighter to the scale, one half of the co-main event live on pay-per-view, the second-ranked UFC welterweight contender, Gilbert Durinho Burns. $170.5, the official weight for Gilbert Durinho Burns.
Thank you, Gilbert.
All right, next athlete to the scale coming up on his 20th UFC appearance here Saturday night, 15th ranked middleweight contender, Brad Tavares.
Straight ahead, Brad.
184.5, the official weight for Brad Tavares.
Thanks, Brad.
Don't want a bad report. He regained his footing. He regained his footing.
I don't know about that review process.
All right, next fighter to the scale, the other man around whom this fight card was built, the former simultaneous two-division UFC champion, the iconic, the notorious Conor McGregor.
Punch your back, guys. Punch your back, please. 156.
The official weight, 156 pounds for Conor McGregor.
Thank you, Connor.
Your main event for UFC 264 is official. All right, next athlete to the scale, the other half of the co-main event, the UFC's welterweight division, former two-time world title challenger and number 4 in the world at present, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson.
Nope, I'm good with that. 170 and a half.
170 and a half, the official weight for Stephen Thompson. All right, next fighter to the scale in the UFC flyweight division, former world title challenger, number 4 in the world, Jennifer Maia.
$125.5.
The official weight 125 and a half for Jennifer Maia. All right, next fighter to the scale, one of the top contenders in the UFC women's bantamweight division, set to compete live on pay-per-view tomorrow, Irene Aldana.
Are we ready now? On scale, please. Right here, 5 seconds, please. Thank you very much.
139 and a half, the official weight for Irene Aldana. All right, next fighter to the scale in the UFC's heavyweight division, part of your pay-per-view main card, Tai Bam Bam Tuivasa. The official weight 263 pounds for Tai Tuivasa.
Let's go.
done the Super Bowl.
All right, next fighter to the scale. You can see him compete live on ESPN in the UFC's featherweight division, the undefeated Ilya Topulia.
Straight ahead, Ilya.
145 and a half, the official weight for Ilya Topulia.
Thank you, sir. Alan Amadovsky will do that. He's on the check stand. Floor tennis, I call it. Let's see this one. Right up in the center. First one.
Sharon's standing in the hole. I mean, this is a guy.
One second.
All right, next fighter to the scale in the UFC's middleweight division, Alan Amadovsky.
Straight ahead.
186, the official weight for Alan Amadovsky.
Thank you.
He's not a villain.
Sure. That's your life in that? I double checked it. 7 pound difference.
So that you did,
Exactly.
they said a little thing.
Yeah, they said yeah, but it doesn't violate any of our code or statutes.
It's bad news for us. We gotta go to Secret Service. Oh, we do?
Yeah, I'm just gonna say.
Pretty sure he still has it.
Great job. And allocated 7 to 5.
I don't know. Can't see much. Oh, because he says
To the right, to the right.
This is what a loser looks like.
Oh, you forgot to turn the camera on.
Official weigh-in hijinks.
We're so wacky here. We're so wacky.
By the way, if you're joining us, about 52 minutes in this 2-hour in San Francisco. A little over an hour and a half. Just came out from Fairfax Progressive Audio Face-Offs and the after the people a lot of you say that. They view the big ceremony that you know,
right, look alive out there. Next athlete to the scale in the UFC's welterweight division, the former UFC interim champion, the natural-born killer, Carlos Condon.
$171.
171 pounds, the official weight for Carlos Condon.
Carlos.
Make sure I didn't miss him. Jerome Rivera didn't.
Excuse me. Can you tell him if he should move because
He's gonna sit down.
Sir? Sorry, you're in our shot.
Oh,
Thanks.
yeah,
Thanks.
What's this one say?
Same
You
thing.
should be watching MMAWeekly.com.
Should happen.
I'm out again.
Peterson attacked his dad last time he shot and then nobody's wearing it. Sir.
Language. This is a family story.
All right, next fighter to the scale, making his second pay-per-view appearance here tomorrow night on the main card in UFC 264 in the heavyweight division, the Prince of War, Greg Hardy.
Good ahead.
264 and a half, the official weight for Greg Hardy.
Thank you, Greg.
best 21-year-old I know.
35.
I don't believe it.
With the mentality of like a 22-year-old.
Yeah.
And the humor of a 13-year-old boy.
Oh, now the sexist jokes.
that's that ain't you know like at that point you know
It's still going. You get here. Oh, not so close.
All right, next athlete to the scale competing live on UFC Fight Pass at UFC 264 in the flyweight division, Jerome Rivera.
$125 and a half.
125 and a half, the official weight for Jerome Rivera.
Let's go, baby. Thank you.
All right, our last fighter to weigh in this morning in the UFC's welterweight division, competing live on ESPN tomorrow, Michel Pereira.
Michel.
170 and a half, the official weight for Michel Pereira.
Five. Thank you, sir. Woo!
all right so you know 10:40?
Yeah, works for me. If you have her in a chair, I could just lock the shot and work all the time.
Yeah, but everybody else has to work too.
That's what I'm saying. If you set him in a chair, people will have to mind the cameras. High chair?
That ain't gonna happen.
With that?
Alright, so he can't do this.
Oh.
Give him a wide chair.
All right, guys, thanks for hanging in with us at the official weigh-ins today at MMA Weekly. Upcoming, we have some Q&A with John Anik, Dean Thomas, Daniel Poirier, and Megan Olby. So if you guys want to hang out, we'll have them coming up.
What's all, guys?
Can I get by real quick?
copy ruling that out? It's a little expensive. It's a little expensive. Yeah, that comes based off of the assessments, you will not be trying to figure out hang around for Dana. Dana doesn't take a short on the when you days anymore, especially because the press conference for
Yeah, we
have to be conservative with the suit, but are they special edition anywhere? Or what
no, I mean, we're not bringing it today, Johnny. We have black Doc Martin high tops. We're a little subdued today.
Black Doc Martin high top. I mean, it's still something. It's still something.
Gives me like an inch and a half.
I like it.
Take all the height you can get.
I just love it. I just love it.
I think we're ready. Everybody good? Everybody good to go ahead and start bringing talent? Yeah? Good? All right, let's rock and roll. All right, we're going to start bringing talent. Cool. We're going to start it off with the man himself. UFC lead commentator, John Annan.
I don't know.
Hello, everybody.
That's fine.
Y'all really stick around for me? No. There's got, oh, Daniel Cormier's coming out here.
Stick around for you. We came here for you.
That's
what are you talking
right.
about? I guess the big question is, do you have your Vegas driver's license renewed yet? I mean, now that you're setting up once again.
14 days at the Residence Inn, baby, if anybody needs to find me, room 327. No, I lived here for 5 years, and I beg my wife to move back every other week, so hopefully it's in the not-too-distant future that I am a Nevada resident once again.
I dig it. Hey, listen, I think behind the scenes stuff, right? I mean, this is the UFC machine that puts on fights every single week, but this one feels bigger. What is it different for you guys? I mean, are you guys having to do something different, or is it just you just say, I'm just showing up, it's another paycheck, it's another job assignment?
Oh, it's different. You should see my television format, and the sponsorship inventory is absolutely obnoxious. But no, this sport is better when Conor McGregor is in it. And if Kamaru Usman or another champion is headlining pay-per-view, maybe I do 5 or 7 media hits during the week. I've had over 3 dozen requests because Conor McGregor is headlining. It was like that when Ronda Rousey was here as well. But I'm just excited, man. I'm jumping out of my skin. And as I've told you guys in the past, for me, it's not so much about Conor and Dustin, especially on the eve of a pay-per-view. It's about Allen, Amadovsky, and everybody on down. So I'm in a back-to-back situation. I got 56 athletes in 2 weeks, and doing my best to learn them all as best I can.
Obviously, all the attention's on the main event, despite all the names that you mentioned there. You'll do a great job of telling the story, you always do. But I'm curious. We know you're a waging enthusiast as well. You like to put bets down. You certainly won't be betting on it. But when you break it down, because I know you analyze matchups, what things stood out to you? I think everybody's trying to figure out what do we need to be looking at to break this thing down. I'm not asking you, of course, to make a pick, but what aspects of the fight itself stood out to you to start breaking down?
So if you bet on, looks like my mic went out. So if you bet on Dustin Poirier in January, he was. Let me get the mic, guys. Probably should save the voice a little bit. Thank you. If you bet on Dustin Poirier in January, you were getting plus 250, right? If you bet on Dustin now, you're getting minus 130. Why, right? A lot of that has to do with the result that we had in January. One thing that I've looked a lot at, though, is that was anything but a normalized fight atmosphere. Certainly much has been made of Conor McGregor's children being there. But Fight Island and that W Hotel, you guys can attest, it's just an intoxicating, weird fight atmosphere. You know, we had a quick result in Chandler Hooker, a little bit of an abbreviated warm-up. The next thing you know, Conor and Dustin are in the cage. Now you got 20,000 plus at T-Mobile Arena. I just think it stands to reason that both athletes could benefit from being back in front of a crowd. But big picture for me, I think Dustin's biggest advantage is just the lack of gaps in developmental time over the last 10 years. He has been at this craft without break for 15, 20 years, and that's why he has 11 UFC lightweight wins to his credit. So I think Conor's going to have to fight a great fight, but he did win round 1 in January, and I think a lot of people looking at him at plus money are going to find that to be pretty juicy.
You do a great job of like kind of looking at things in big picture scenarios and that sort of thing. Conor McGregor as an athlete, as a star, as a focal point, where do you put him all time in terms of just athletes in general, I think?
Well, I mean, you go sport by sport. I mean, Roger Federer is a favorite of mine, so any top 5 of mine is certainly going to include RF. But Conor's right there. There's no doubt about it. And I think we do lose sight of his ultimate desire to be a mixed martial arts athlete. Like, he's going to cash the check on Sunday, obviously, but he is here to build upon his MMA legacy. And although we can't take away from him the fact that he is the first simultaneous 2-division champ in UFC history, he feels like there's a lot more work to do. You know, the facts are that he has 1 win at 155 pounds in the UFC, and that's a narrative that he wants to change. He's back here for signature wins. He's back here to add to his MMA legacy, and I think we should all appreciate that part of things because he doesn't have to fight.
Last thing for me, like I said, obviously all the attention's on the main event, but I know you research every fight, you're ready. What's one fight that's not getting the love it should be, one that stands out to you that you're like, people should be paying attention to this fight?
Well, I'm curious what Ilya Topulia, the undefeated fighter, can do with this Ryan Hall challenge. It's really as unique a grappling challenge as we have in the UFC right now, and shout out to my podcast partner, Ken Flo, who's going to be in Ryan Hall's corner. So I'm excited to see how Ken Flo fits out that Venom fight kit this weekend. But that fight jumps off the card for me, and I'm certainly not the first to highlight Carlos Condon and Max Griffin in the featured prelim. Max Griffin's current form is very good, but you can say the same about Condon, who really seems to have regained his momentum. So, I mean, Conor's at the top of the bill. It's an embarrassment of riches all the way down, my man. Thank you.
John, over here.
Hey, man.
I don't know if I know you're a storyline guy and a betting guy, but fellow New Englander Chris Montinho plus 525, Sean O'Malley like minus 840 last I heard. Have you gotten to meet Chris and hear his story at all?
Yes, I have gotten to meet Chris. I got to listen to some local radio he did back in Fall River, Massachusetts before I came out here. And I was with Jorge Masvidal doing some stuff earlier this week. And Gamebred sort of has this blind philosophy that there shouldn't be anything that constitutes a 10-to-1 favorite in mixed martial arts. That nobody should be minus 1,000 or higher just by nature of a fight, and that anything can and does happen all the time. It's the theater of the unpredictable. All I'll tell you about Moutinho from my interactions with him is that he is totally unfazed by the opponent, by the atmosphere, by the environment of this UFC debut. This is a guy that has put in a decade plus of work. He's traveled to gyms all around the world. Will he be fazed when he makes that walk? I don't know. But at least right now, he is mentally sound, and I don't think he's going to be intimidated by the setting. Skill for skill, he would appear to be up against it.
And then you mentioned the Ryan Hall Ilya Topuria fight. You called it the Ryan Hall puzzle. He hasn't lost yet in the UFC. I don't think he's really broke like a sweat in this fight. He's plus 195. Ilya's the favorite right now. I think he's minus 250. Are you surprised at the favorite and the betting odds in that fight?
I think it's a little bit wider than I would have expected, my man. I will say, though, that odds makers in Las Vegas have long respected undefeated fighters, and maybe too much so. But I think for a lot of people, they see that O in Topuria's loss column, and they kind of overrate that. But you're right. Ryan Hall's been perfect in the UFC. I was even going back and watching film of him losing on The Ultimate Fighter, just to find some film against Saul Rogers, like, how do you actually beat this guy? So it's a compelling matchup. You know, Topuria is obviously a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, but I think he would be wise to disengage on that front, you know. Thanks.
John, to your right over here. You know, we talk about these atmospheres and these big fights, the fighters, and how it might affect them going against them or being in these atmospheres. But for you as a commentator, is it harder depending on, you know, what the fight is, who the fighters are, and the atmosphere? Does that affect you at all?
It doesn't necessarily affect me on fight night, but tonight is going to be an absolute bear. I'm going to leave you guys, go back to my hotel room, pound some keys for a little bit. Then we got a 2-hour UFC live on ESPN. So I probably won't get back to my room until 7, 8 tonight when I'll really dig into some of the television formatics. So it's a long day. My Fridays before pay-per-views are about 18 hours. Pay-per-views are a different beast than the fight night, and then a Conor McGregor headline pay-per-view takes it up another notch. But at least at this point, you know, I'm coming up on 10 years with the UFC in October. This is the devil I know, so I'm just trying to sort of lean into that part of it.
Yeah, well, congrats on that, sir.
Thank you.
And, if you could pick one fighter of all time that you've never commentated their fight of, who would you pick?
Nick Diaz, without question. And I got a 209 tattoo to prove it. I did call Nick Diaz Carlos Condit for a movie theater in 3D at UFC 143, but I have never actually called a Nick Diaz fight. So that would be the name. Georges St-Pierre was the answer for a long time, but he did come back and fight Michael Bisping and thankfully had that opportunity. But hopefully later this year I might get the chance with Nick, so we'll see.
Looking like it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
John, over here.
Hey, man.
Obviously, yesterday the atmosphere was crazy as we kind of saw the old Conor McGregor trash talking, you know, ready to fight at a presser. But over the years, as you've seen Conor gain such a rabid fan base, how has it evolved into having such loyal supporters that whoever's on the other side of the octagon is getting heavily booed?
Yeah, right. Even here in the United States of America, I do think some of the Americans will try to be heard on Saturday night, but best of luck competing with the Irish men and women that have traveled far and wide to be here for Conor McGregor. I really feel like the backdrop for the trash talk this week had everything to do with that $500,000 donation and the fact that, however, impatiently, in Conor's words, Dustin came out and sort of took issue with a little bit of a delay with that payment. That was the foundation for this animosity this week. I'm not saying that Conor was going to be as subdued as he was on Fight Island, but that was the impetus for the back and forth this week. And I've learned to sort of accept and support every athlete in whatever condition, but I do like this version of Conor, you know, not necessarily putting everybody over with praise and just sort of being the fighter and having that chip on his shoulder.
And how exactly does that chip elevate the atmosphere that's going to be in the arena?
Well, I think it elevated the press conference, and people obviously get excited when there's heat on a fight. Certainly for us as commentators, we'd rather have a little bit of heat on a fight than it to be a love fest and these guys hugging before the third round and there's still time on the clock. So I think it has an impact, but man, I mean, the T-Mobile Arena is going to be rabid, dude. I mean, like, I don't know that it really matters. Like, when we were in Jacksonville in April, yeah, we had 3 title fights. It wouldn't have mattered. I just think fans are jonesing to be back in the building, and I think this is a special live event that you all are going to be in the building for, and as sought after a UFC ticket, in my mind, as any in recent memory. So,
cool. Thank you, man.
Thank you.
Hey, John, over here on your right.
Hey.
First off, do you think Rogers played his last Wimbledon this week?
I hope not, but I think it looks that way. We'll see.
I don't know. I think he got to have at least one more in a good Olympic run, in my opinion, don't you think?
Let's hope so.
Talking about the fights, for yourself, you know, you're going to do your job, you're going to commentate everything, someone's going to get their hand raised. Do you now go on to celebrate since, you know, this kind of event is kind of the Super Bowl weekend for UFC, or do you just, after everything, you're just ready to, you know, hit the hay?
So for this event, I will celebrate. My twin brother's coming out tonight, so I'm very excited about that. So I'll have about 24 hours where I'll do some things recreationally, and then I will return to form because I'm actually out here for the Makhachev-Moises fight next Saturday. So, but like even today, right, there will be a few voiceovers that get done for that July 17th show. We're turning and burning, baby, 41 times a year. So yes, I will decompress for about 24 hours and then begin my Fight Night Fighter cards on Tuesday morning.
How good does it feel to have turned 30 years old recently?
43. Sorry for cussing, Koss, but I'm closer to 50 than 30, which is not ideal. It is what it is, though, right? I mean, it's the one thing we all can't really control. So.
You're making it look good, John.
Thanks,
congrats.
Thank you.
John, over here on your right.
Hey, man.
So back in April, you said that of all the fights that you wanted to see happen in 2021, Colby Covington versus Khamzat Chimaev was at the top of that list. But today we found out that Khamzat will face Li Jing Leon in October. What's your reaction to that?
I think it's a good test at this point in time. You know, the Leech has been a perennial welterweight contender type for the last couple years, and I think it's a good challenge for Khamzat Chimaev. My question for Khamzat is, how long can he sustain at welterweight? I think he's a middleweight in terms of a championship trajectory. I just think he's a big guy, and it's going to be hard for him to consistently make that weight. But I think this is what you want to see. When I was salivating at the possibility of Chimaev fighting Leon Edwards or Colby Covington, ultimately what we all want to see is him ascend and take on challenges that are legitimate. And I think this is a perfect matchup for this stage of his career.
And obviously tomorrow night is a massive fight. In your opinion, where does that rank amongst other high-profile fights in recent memory? And how many pay-per-view buys do you think it does?
God, it's hard for me without any internal metrics. I mean, I certainly think we're going to do 7 figures. You know, I don't know that any live event for me is going to top Khabib Nurmagomedov and Conor McGregor just because of the preamble and then the brawl that ensued after the fact. You know, that's always the
the point of comparison for me, but I don't know, man. Recency bias aside, this one feels as big as any as I have called in my career for sure.
Cool. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Hey, John. I was curious, you mentioned the Jacksonville fight way back when, and now we have the fans back, right? So as a commentator, someone that does play-by-play, what have you noticed in contrast during the time that there weren't fans, what you were able to notice about the fight game and nuances that you couldn't recognize?
You know, I know a lot of people appreciated the natural sound you were getting from the cornerman when we wouldn't even go into a coach's cam because there were no fans, but the fans are the lifeblood of our sport. Honestly, I don't know how we called fights without a crowd as long as we did, because it really helps us, right? Even just to be able to cap a title fight and then to lay out for 10 seconds and then let the crowd do the work for us. So I do not look forward to going back into an environment in which we don't have fans. I know that's going to be my reality next Saturday night, but I'm not overstating it. I mean, for us, it's just a huge enhancer to everything we're doing on Fight Night. I'll never forget walking into that arena in Jacksonville for the first time, and just so thankful to see all of those fine people.
Another one, just always wondered this, always been curious. How much time do you spend and devote to actually learning the pronunciation of everybody's name? As a lot of the fans out there call you the pronunciation police.
Well, you know, I appreciate that distinction, but it's really just that I think I practice more than most, right? Like if I'm doing a voiceover and I can't pronounce the name, I'll stop the voiceover, I'll say it 50 or 65 times, and then it's committed to memory. My goal is so I can show up on Saturday night with no phonetics, right? Right now I got a couple, like Hu Yao Song. I'm trying not to call him Hugh, right? So Hu Yao Song, I got phonetics right now, but I'm hoping by tomorrow night I won't need the phonetics. But I just think practice makes perfect, baby. I know Allen Iverson doesn't want to hear it, but you got to practice.
Thank you.
Thank you.
John, obviously the UFC has a lot more stars than Conor, but if he loses, how will that affect trying to get more mainstream fans into get involved?
Well, this might sound like an answer from a guy whose check is cut by the promotion, but the pandemic was really huge for our sport and our fan base. You know, I've just noticed a seismic difference in our fan base because we were live when a lot of sports weren't. So I don't know that mixed martial arts and the UFC has ever been in a better place domestically than we are now. You know, we've supplanted the NHL into that big four with baseball and basketball and football. And I still believe if Conor McGregor loses this fight and falls to 1-3 at 155 pounds, it stands to reason that he does the Diaz Trilogy in December, and we're all back here talking about the magnitude of the event. So you certainly can't have a prolonged losing streak and maintain the ultimate relevance, but I think Conor McGregor's star power is such that he can handle a loss or two more and still be able to be the crossover star that he is. Thanks.
John, way back here.
Hi.
Mentioned the birthday and the fact that you've been actually covering this game for a long time. The fight game has evolved, but also the way that the fight game has been covered in the media has evolved too. What do you make about how UFC and MMA is covered now as opposed to when you first started?
It's a good question. You know, I came here from ESPN in 2011. We didn't even have a pronunciation guide, right? And obviously we had far fewer media members covering this sport. For a guy like me, as I get ready to call these fights, just think about all the wealth of information now that is at my fingertips on the internet that wasn't there when I was getting ready to call my first fight in 2011. So I just think overall the sport is in a much better place, and there are just a lot of qualified, credentialed journalists that are now attaching themselves to this sport, not unlike the way I did 10 years ago. So it's great for me, man. The preparation and my process has certainly, it's still arduous, but it's gotten a lot easier because of people like you. Good.
Hey, John, one in the back. To what extent do you think that Conor's performance yesterday was calculated versus emotional, and to what end, if so?
You know, I think he doesn't mind leaning into the emotion, but I do think his general disposition, that part of it was calculated. You know, he was going to go out there with that proverbial chip on his shoulder. He was going to be a dick if he needed to be. So I think that part of it was calculated. But what I love about Conor McGregor is that largely the trash talk is not rehearsed or pre-scripted, right? Like when I'm capping a fight, I don't think about what I'm going to say. And I think Conor very much subscribes to that theory, and that's why by and large, his trash talk has resonated with a lot of people because it's organic and it's not pre-thought. So, you know, I know some suggested maybe it wasn't his banner performance. I was sitting in my room. I was wildly entertained the whole time. So, I don't know, man. I'm excited.
Well, right, but that's sort of the interesting idea about the sort of functionality of it, right? Like, do you think it was an attempt to get into Dustin's head? Because like if so, right? Like once you lose that intimidation factor, once someone admits and tells you that trash talk got in their head, and then they knock you out, like how do you gain that back? Is that even possible?
I do think that visual and that reality of what happened in January is fresh in Conor McGregor's mind, but I think he's talking the way he is and the bravado is there. He's doing that for himself. I think if he understands Dustin Poirier the way we all do, he acutely knows that you're not going to be able to occupy headspace with Dustin the way you were in 2014. He's just too mentally tough. He doesn't care about the peripheral stuff that he cared about even 2 or 3 fights ago. Before Dustin fought Dan Hooker, he was liking my shit on Instagram. He's nowhere to be found now, So his mentality has changed to a point where I think Dustin's mind is impenetrable, and I don't know. We'll talk to both guys after the fight, but I think that's where I'm at right now.
Thanks, John.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
As always. Thanks, John.
Hey, what's up, brother?
Max, whose idea was it to jump on a skateboard outside of T-Mobile Arena? That was a classic scene there.
I had to let everybody know that who the best boxer in the UFC was, before the press conference, because all these guys is talking wild. So we decided to let them really know who the best boxer was, and that was here. So it was good fun.
I like it. Thoughts on the trilogy here that's happening? Obviously a big main event. Is it a fight that needed to happen? Some people say it needed to happen. Some people say, hey, there were different paths for both these guys to go in right now. What do you think? Was it a fight you wanted to see happen, or did it surprise you?
For sure. It's a fun fight, and usually when Conor is on the bad side of something, he get what he wants, So all respect, all power to him. So super excited for it.
Yeah. We're all breaking down this thing. Obviously, you're familiar with both guys. What stands out to you in this matchup? Like, what are the aspects that we need to be looking at when we're trying to figure out who's going to win this thing?
At the end of the day, everybody talk about the leg kicks, and they think the leg kicks is the big thing. But, Dustin actually took down Conor, and I would say Conor's takedown defense was much better against Khabib than Dustin. So they talk about the first game plan, whatever. It wasn't even part of the game plan, the leg kicks. And the first game plan to me is the takedowns, and we get to see what happens. If Conor can stop that takedowns, or if Dustin takes him down as easy as Dustin did, so we see what happens.
Do you get excited for fights like this? I mean, obviously you're not involved, but these are your contemporaries. I mean, but do you go, I don't want to get excited, or do big fights like this hype you up?
It hypes me up, UFC like turning curveballs, before I got injured, before I was out, I was actually one of the replacements for this fight, I was going to be here this week, weighing in and doing everything before our fight that's supposed to happen next week. So it's insane,
That's funny. I didn't know that. So had you been a replacement, is there one side of the matchup you would have most liked to fight?
I want to fight both of them. I want to fight both. Both of them is a fun fight. Both of them is a great fight, and I can't wait. At this level, the margin of mistake is very small, very small. You take one step too fast, you get caught with something. You take one step too slow, you get caught with something. So, even like with me and Dustin, everybody, the scoreboard or whatever, everybody think it was lopsided or whatever people say. But at the end of the day, Dustin in there, the man himself, was saying that he felt like the third round was getting away from him. The fight was slipping away from him after the third round with me. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Can you give us the update on your health, where you stand, when you look to come back, like how you doing?
Yeah, all you guys is good here. You guys know how it is. There's commission. We gotta take a physical. I couldn't pass the physical because of a sprain, and I'm in PT now. I'm feeling better than ever. Hopefully we can get back before the end of the year, and we see what happens. It's still the best boxer in the UFC, so I can't wait.
I was gonna say, we see what happens. Do you want to keep the matchup together? Are you looking for something new? What do you think the plan should be?
Like I said, I don't know what UFC want to do. They throw curveballs, just like you said. You didn't know that I was the last-minute replacement for this fight. Anything can happen. It changes on a dime, so we take one step at a time. We take care of this injury, and we move on forward.
Nice. Last thing for me, do you have a pick in this trilogy fight? Are you leaning one way or the other?
I just can't wait, It's just good to be a fan, especially in Vegas, especially with this crowd, with this magnitude. I can't wait to see two guys go out there, and we see who did the work.
Max, did you see the Korean Zombies comments that you don't have punching power?
Yeah, at the end of the day, we read about it, but you don't need punching power for anything. I mean, I just set a record with 700 plus fights, 700 plus punches. So punching power, I'll do without it. It's cool.
Is it a little bit out of character for him, right? We've never heard him talk trash before. So was it a bit surprising for you to hear that he was coming at you?
It is what it is, the people, the team, the guys you surround yourself with, is what gonna prevail, you know. So some guys in his ear, they got to him, and he said what he said. You know, at the end of the day, I focus on myself. I focus on whatever's going on, whatever UFC wants to do, and we'll go from there.
I know you said you don't mind whoever the UFC throws at you, but is there a date? How soon do you want to get back in there?
I don't know. You know, I'm doing PT right now. They said they're not too sure. They told us one date, then they said, but that's if everything goes great, you know. So we see what happens. It's just a waiting game.
Cool, man. Thank you.
Max right here. Who's the second best boxer in the UFC?
Second best boxer, I don't know. I'm probably like the top three, the first three. I put myself.
So who's number 4?
Then I'll go to 4. You know, it's just gonna keep on going down. You know, so only one matter.
Fair. And then they announced featherweight matchup between Edson Barboza and Giga Chikadze. I don't know, how do you see that fight going down? Giga's been calling for a high-level opponent now, and he finally gets in Edson.
We see what happens. We get to see, you know. I heard about the Giga guy, whatever, his kick and stuff, but Edson Barboza's no slouch, you know. This guy been with the best at 155. He's been in there with the best at 145, so it's an exciting matchup, and can't wait to see it plan out. Just glad that it's moving forward, you know.
Max over here. First off, congratulations on winning the parenting challenge on the weigh-in show.
Yes, that's man on plan. You guys already know the vibes.
Do you think that DC OP'd his character on the video game?
Oh, bro, how you gonna play me in UFC 4 and you're gonna choose Max Holloway? That's not fair. You know, DC was like whatever, and I don't want to say pad my record because I like when people use me, but that guy in the game is pretty cheap, man. Whatever they're doing at UFC 4. That USADA needs to test his ass in the game because Max Holloway in the game is just on another level.
To talk about the featherweight division a little bit, one of the guys that's kind of been removed from the rankings, been out a while, Zabit. I mean, we're hearing different stuff all the time. He's been sick or he's been hurt. I mean, what do you think? Like, if they say, hey, he may not be back for a while because of his health, what are your thoughts on a contender like that being taken out of the competition?
It happens, man. You know, Dana White said it clearly. You know, you want to be it. You want to keep fighting. You want to keep doing this thing, and you want to stay in the media's eyes. You know, so at the end of the day, I hope everything is great with him, health-wise, and I hope he's not no injury. I hope he's not fighting with something with COVID. You know, so all prayers to him. But we see what happens. You know.
Thank you.
Max, right over here with you, right? Have you been watching The Ultimate Fighter this season?
I have not been watching The Ultimate Fighter, but I can tell you what I've been doing that you guys can come and chill with me. I've been gaming a bunch. Facebook.gg/Max Holloway Official. All the live stream. Don't be asking me about fighting in there because my mod's going to ban your ass, so I just letting you know.
Which games you play?
I play Call of Duty. I'm not only the best boxer in UFC, I'm probably the best Call of Duty Warzone player too, so that's another thing to put on top of the resume.
And we mentioned Edson Barboza earlier. A guy like that with his style and resume, do those kind of fights interest you a lot, just from the fun perspective of them?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, for sure. You know, Barboza was one of the guys that before I was in the UFC, I watched him. You know, and he did the cool spinning stuff. He had that. I mean, the Terry Edom knockout is just one for the history books. You know, so it's just amazing. You know, it's just amazing. Edson is a beast, and I can't wait to see what the future holds for him.
You ever thought about throwing those kicks?
All the time, but the way my flexibility is, put out, I gotta get a little bit more flexible. I gotta start doing more stretching or something, yoga. I don't know.
All right, thanks, Max.
Max, right over here on your right. Your man DC's in the building, and even though he's still retired, do you still want to take that Daddest Man on the Planet title from him?
I just won the Daddest Man on title. It's on ABC on the morning show. You guys can watch it. We got it filmed. We got a documentary. We had a 5 challenge or 4 challenge. I forget what it was. I think it was 5. And I just beat him. So Daddest Man on Planet. I'm gonna leave him alone. I want to leave him retired. I want to start harassing him because I don't know what demons he's fighting with the inside. So I gotta go focus on guys who's actually active.
All right, fair enough. And we saw you yelling at the commentary in your last fight, saying that you were the best boxer in the UFC. What went through your mind at that moment to prompt you to do that?
I heard DC. I heard DC talking there. We didn't have too much fans. We had fans, but I heard DC talking to Dan Hardy. And they were saying something about count it up and blah, 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 or talking about boxing. So I was like, you know what, count it up. And then I slipped a bunch. I was just in my zone, and then had to let him know, Calvin was saying he was the best boxer in the UFC. We had to remind him, so.
Cool, thanks.
Yeah, I was curious, favorite Call of Duty, first of all, Black Ops, Modern Warfare.
I like Call of Duty 4, the original one, but I really loving this Warzone. The BR scene is so much fun.
Also, NBA Finals. Who you got coming in with the championship?
Got to roll with my man CP3. I hope he gets one. Devin Booker, Suns in 4, I guess. You know, I met the guy, so I got to roll with the Suns in 4 guy.
Suns in 5.
Suns or Suns in 5, whatever it is. Suns period, please.
Just last one. You're talking a lot about boxing. What are some of your thoughts on the MMA boxing crossover fights that have been happening, like Paul and Woodley, things like that?
I mean, my thoughts is, we need to talk to Dana White. Let's get a real boxer. Let's get the best boxer of the UFC doing some boxing matches, not this damn wrestler. So that's just how I feel. I feel like if you want to go and show MMA guy, at least get a striking MMA guy to go on over there to do it, So at the end of the day, we see what happens, I know Tyrone, he actually, as close as to a striker that they're going to get over there, They're not going to let one of us strikers go do our thing over there because we're just going to show out and show up. So that's what I think. Thank you, guys.
Bye, Max. Hi, guys.
Megan, you get the behind-the-scenes access that we don't get, especially on a big pay-per-view like this. We haven't had a ton of access with the headliners, so I'm just curious to you. Can you identify anything that stands out from your interactions or observations with these guys?
I think that we all obviously saw Conor maybe fired up again in a way that we were used to seeing him early on in his career. Maybe we didn't see on Fight Island, that last fight. And I even told him himself, I don't like this label of like old Conor, new Conor, whatever it is, but he kind of went back to his smack talking ways. But behind the scenes, he was still very chill. He's same guy that we've seen, fight in and fight out. And so I think he was pretty chill compared to what we've seen on stage or maybe in interviews. And Dustin's been the same guy, I feel like, since the WEC. So behind the scenes, not too much. You can tell, though, that they are literally counting the seconds until they can fight. There's a point where I think all of this becomes, okay, how much more do we have to do? So, when they're coming to me for interviews and I'm the last one, I'm like, I'm sorry, we're almost there. We're getting to the bottom of it. And so I think they're just veterans, so they know what it encompasses, and there always seems to be more and more and more. So you can tell they're just ready to get in the octagon, and they're kind of done with everything else.
Yeah. It's interesting you say about like old Conor, new Conor. I think like everybody's trying to figure out like which version of Conor is. I mean, does it remind you of any point in his career like where he is right now, or is this just something new?
Yeah, no, it does for sure. I think that when we sat down the other day and had an interview, it did kind of remind me of, a couple of years ago and how he was. He wasn't as talkative as maybe he was even back then, but I think that's different, right? There's a mission on his mind. There's a lot of pressure, and regardless of whether he acknowledges the noise or not, it's still surrounding him. So in terms of his attitude and kind of the sound bites and that kind of stuff, that was very old Conor, we'll call it, even though I don't like doing that. But I think this is kind of an evolution of taking all of those experiences through the UFC, and especially the last couple of fights combined, and this is who he believes he needs to be, and this is just who he is right now.
And then I want to ask you about Dustin as well, right? Because the press conference was interesting, seeing them both on stage yesterday. And Dustin played it pretty cool, right? It's like, this doesn't bother me. It doesn't even get in my head at all. But he did look a little fired up when the thing started. So what can you tell us as far as like behind the scenes, behind the cameras, like this calm, cool, collected Dustin that doesn't care? Is that it, or is he having to calm himself down in moments?
Honestly, I mean, from what I've seen, it really seems that is accurate. It seems like he's telling the truth and that he is calm, cool, and collected. I think, especially having that experience at UFC 178, I don't know if it would ever get worse than that for him, in terms of being fired up at an opponent. And I think he probably took a lot from that. I'm not saying that at the end of the day he doesn't go home or wherever he's staying and be frustrated by certain lines or, I should have said this. He probably does do that. But in terms of how we see him, he's genuinely like very even-keeled. You would maybe see the same Dustin whether it was that opponent or a different opponent. I think he really is now in the mindset, in the groove of what he needs to do to be successful and not allow that smack talk or the outside noise or the opponent or whoever it may be fluster him as it did at 178.
Last thing for me, I want to ask you, I mean, obviously everything's about the main event, but is there a story or something that you've uncovered this week or a personality, just something that like needs attention? Because you may get it on the broadcast, you may not. So give it to us now. What's one that people need to know about?
Well, I actually love this Max Griffin and Carlos Condit fight because Max said that one of the first fights he saw with the WC was a Carlos Condit fight. And he said, I saw him pacing and going back and forth in front of the camera and he was snarling that was a guy I didn't want to just be like. I also knew I wanted to fight him one day. And so for a long time, that's been on his radar. And I think it's so cool because a guy like Carlos Condon, we all know how talented he is and all of his accomplishments, but I think there's something to be said for talents like that who have been able to be in the organization. Dustin Poirier is another great example, but be in the organization between the WC, UFC, Strikeforce even, for so long, right? So be at the top of the game and be dangerous for not just 1 or 2 years, not 5 years, but this is 10, 15 years in the sport where you are still putting the fear of God into the opponent that stands across from you. And I think that I love that part of that story because I love that Max Griffin was this, junior high or high school kid watching a WEC fight and seeing somebody like, wow, that guy looks really cool and his nickname's Natural Born Killer. And now he gets to face him. But I mean, all due respect to Carlos Condon because that guy has been on top of the game since Max was in junior or high school. You know what I mean? So it's really, I think there's a lot to look forward to in that fight besides the actual matchup. I love the story behind that one.
Megan, over here.
Hi.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Have you met Chris Montigno at all this week? I know he took this fight on
Yes.
short notice. His media day, he said he was working 80 hours up until 80 hours a week up until June, and it seems a lot of fans have gravitated towards his story. So in your interactions with him, how's he been?
Yeah, he's been great. I don't want to say he seemed overwhelmed or anything, but there is just a lot to do, right? And when it's your first time and you come to such a well-oiled machine that has, okay, here's what your schedule is, and you look at things, it could be a little daunting. And certainly because he's facing a guy like Sean O'Malley, there's going to be a little bit more attention on him than maybe somebody who took a short notice fight on the same card, but maybe a different opponent earlier in the night. He seems to be handling everything really well. I think that he understands this could be an incredible opportunity should he win, but if he doesn't, there's not a lot lost. And that's what I took away from our interactions and our conversations was that he seemed very confident that no matter what, taking this step is a good one. So there's not really any negatives. Yes, it might not end in his favor and maybe you have that short-term embarrassment or whatever it may be, but in the long term you are proving you're willing, you're proving you're going to come in here and get on the scale. You're going to be under those bright lights of a pay-per-view. Everything else is going to be relatively easy, compared to that. After this fight, like his second fight in the UFC, I'm sure is going to be like the easiest thing he has ever had in his life. But he just seems to be in a really great, healthy mindset of like, no, I'm coming in here to win. I believe I have the tools to win. But if I don't, okay, I'll get another fight and then I'll be able to prepare. I'll be able to kind of start my journey in the way that I'm supposed to.
And finally, I know a lot of fans were happy to see the quote-unquote old Conor at the press conference, but I think some people thought he crossed the line a little bit by bringing in Dustin Poirier's wife into the trash talk. I'm curious, do you think that was a little over the line, especially with the tweets and he's saying she's DMing him and all this stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I don't love when family members in general are brought in because I am one and I don't like being a part of it either. So, I think that the Poirier family handled it really well. I actually laughed out loud when I saw Dustin's post, like me and hubby walking into the arena. I thought it was hilarious. No, I don't love it. And I don't think that it really adds anything. I understand why he was doing it, right? Like he's trying to probably get an edge somehow or fire Dustin up and sell the fight, which is also what he's so great at. So if that's what he thought he needed to do, then, that's his decision. I could probably do without it, though, especially, like I said, considering the position I'm in. I wouldn't love it if it was me.
Megan, a lot of this fight, the story has been around Conor not bringing Dee and the kids over with him. You've been around him this time and when the family is here. Do you see the difference that he's trying to make? And can you see it? Do you feel a different energy from him?
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I wasn't on Fight Island last fight. I had COVID. But I'm here. And I will say for the fights they've been around, though, no, I honestly don't really see that much of a difference in him because I'm seeing him in atmospheres where he's already clocked in for work. So even though it's behind the scenes of an interview or walking into a weigh-in or whatever, he's still already kind of on the clock. But he told me when we sat down, he's like, listen, you can't want to go kill a man and be giving your baby a bottle and nurturing them. For him, it just can't, it can't be the same thing. I talked to Michael Bisping yesterday and Michael's like, no, for me it was completely opposite. For me, I can 100% do both. But if Conor feels like he can't give 100% either direction, then I respect that decision. I think, though, in terms of his attitude or however he conducts himself, whether it's D or not, he seemed pretty much the same. Even back for Maymack, I mean, Conor Jr. was a baby. I remember they had a high chair or something in his dressing room, and he kind of seemed the same guy. I just think if he can take those distractions away and maybe he realized something from the last camp, then if it benefits him, then all power to him. But he seems kind of the same guy regardless of who's around.
Megan, to your right. You were open about kind of sharing your thoughts on the interaction with Stephen A. Smith a while back, and he'll be working this event. Are you going to be working with him at all?
Well, not directly with him. We're on different desks, but I made a point to go talk to him the other day, and we had a really lovely conversation. I think there's just, he has a lot of jobs, right? So he maybe doesn't get to see everything as closely as other people who cover the sport or who are big fans of the sport. He was so kind. He completely, took it upon himself to be like, hey, it was my bad, and made it very clear he's not a UFC expert. He's not somebody who gets to even watch a ton of content. And so he was super nice, but I wasn't going to let us work a broadcast together on Saturday without making sure I went in there and we had a great chat. So Koss was there. Everything was good.
Cool. And do you think it's important to kind of bring in, those maybe bigger name analyst type figures that maybe aren't the most educated about MMA, but to help them learn and bring in their audiences to mix a little bit?
Sure. I mean, I know that there was mixed reviews when people saw who was all a part of the broadcast team, but I think, hey, anybody with a platform who's willing to do the work is important. I think that as long as they know what they know, right? They're not trying to go outside of any sort of realm of knowledge or try to claim to be experts in certain things that they're not. I think it can't hurt. I mean, they have huge platforms. People know them, and we have a lot of people who tune in for Conor McGregor fights that maybe aren't diehard UFC fans. Maybe this is one of 2 pay-per-views they buy in a year. So if they can relate, oh, I see Stephen A. Smith on there, that's cool, he's here, and they already know him, I think it only helps everyone else. I also think it's our job to try and help Max Kellerman or Stephen A. if they have questions, if there are things that they're not understanding, if this is, a new endeavor for them in certain regards, that we as the broadcasters who always do this, every pay-per-view, that we're also helping. It was why it was important for me to talk to Stephen before we got to the arena on Saturday. I want to make sure that every person on this team is prepared, they're ready to shine, they have what they need, because at the end of the day, there's benefits from every person being on there, and we can all kind of elevate each other, and I think they'll do great.
Team effort, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And then I just wanted to get your thoughts on the co-main event, because I wouldn't say it's flying under the radar, but as most co-mains to a Conor McGregor fight will. But
Sure.
just thoughts overall on Wonderboy versus Gilbert.
I absolutely love it. I love that we're kind of nostalgic with this matchup, karate versus jiu-jitsu, even though obviously they're incredibly well-rounded mixed martial artists. I just think it's a really fun matchup. You'd be hard-pressed to find 2 nicer guys in the sport, which is always hard for me. I'm like, man, you're so happy for whoever wins and so sad for whoever loses, and I'll be doing those interviews regardless, hand raised or not. But it's a great fight, and I'm excited for them to kind of steal the show. And I don't mean that I don't think the main event's not going to be great, but I think you're right. It's flying under the radar, but I think once they get into the octagon, their performance is going to be something that people walk away from the event making sure they mention. I'm looking forward to it. Obviously, a lot on the line there, especially for Stephen Thompson, but there is a lot on the line for Gilbert. If he wants to climb back up that mountain towards a title shot, he needs to start with a win here, and I think he knows that as well. So I'm really, really intrigued by that one, both stylistically and because of the storyline.
Definitely. Thanks, Megan.
Yeah.
Megan right here. Obviously, tomorrow night is going to be a very big night. More people watching than usual. When you think about your day at work tomorrow, what do you visualize? Are there certain hits that you just hope really make it on the broadcast?
All
Are
of
there
them.
certain things?
All of them. I'm a very annoying person with our producers because I'm trying to tell everybody's story, especially on a card like this, because every athlete on this entire card, UFC 264, from the first fight to the last fight, deserve to have their story told. And when our guys at the Octagon are calling the fights, they have to call what they're seeing, right? They can try and make sure they're including some sort of factoid or story about them. But for me, that's where I absolutely live. That's where I want to make sure, oh, there's more eyes on this. That means we can sell this many fighters now. So I'm always like, hey, I have something on this guy. I have something on this guy. But with a show like this, it is a monster in terms of production. There are so many elements. It will be inevitable. Things get killed. We're going to run over on certain things, I'm sure. But I am always, you guys can guarantee, campaigning to be like, how about this story? How about this story? Because I think it's even more important when you have extra eyeballs on a card.
What do you remember the most about the first time you ever interviewed Conor McGregor?
That's a good question. The first time I ever interviewed him, I remember hearing the hype, and I was thinking like, okay, is this real? I think that we had kind of maybe been through that before, and all right, we'll see how this pans out. And I remember interviewing him. I think maybe the one that stands out to me was in Boston for the first FS1 card. He was like a soundbite machine. The guy, it was like he had already gone to broadcasting school or something. He knew exactly how to speak. He knew who to address. He knew how to answer questions. He had been asked repetitive things, and sometimes that is difficult for someone who's relatively new in the sport to be like, oh, I have to have the same energy and the same answer and make sure, even though I've been asked this 10 times today, I'm still doing it. He was already a total pro. And I just remember thinking like, wow, okay, if he can fight as good as, he could do these interviews, then the hype is certainly real. And he's just always been a guy that seems natural in front of a camera.
People talk about, like, when you talk to somebody, like, did you know then, like, they would go on to be a big deal? Did you have that moment like, hey, this guy's going to be a big deal? And have you ever felt that way about somebody else since then that you've interviewed?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I would have to think about it with have I felt that way about somebody else. I mean, I actually feel like maybe Sean O'Malley comes to mind with that. But let me think about it with the other person. But did I know that? You kind of got the vibe, especially when you saw him perform, and when those two things mix. I mean, that is a superstar, right? That's what the Octagon needs, somebody who can drop a person in a minute, but also then cut a promo. And I remember thinking like, okay, this is probably worth the hype. I think this is going to go somewhere. Did I think it was going to be McGregor Mania in the way we've seen? No, I did not. I could have never anticipated that. But I think you kind of get a clue when you interview enough athletes to know, like, okay, this guy's they're gonna do something.
Thank you, and have
Thanks.
a good show tomorrow.
Thanks.
Megan, way back here. Way back. Oh, hi. Hello. The presence of women in combat sports, not just as fighters, but just in the industry, is still a bit of a steep climb. But UFC seems to stand out in terms of promotions. Certainly, you're there, Karen Bryan. We see Angie on the desk and Laura. How much do you recognize that, and what are the opportunities still that you see that you'd like women to be taking advantage of when it comes to combat sports?
Yeah, all of them. I mean, in terms of opportunities, I think that, there are limited ones sometimes when people look at our gender, but it doesn't mean we're unable to do them. It just means we haven't been given the chance yet. But I think all of us are fighting for certain things that we really want to do, whether it's commentary, whether it's more storytelling, hosting the desk, having certain things in the show that maybe aren't quite there yet, or we only do once in a while but are important to us. I mean, I think we do a great job, and my goal is when people see me tell a story, they don't think about me as a female telling the story. They just think the best person for the job's telling the story. And I think the same thing about, everybody that we work with on this broadcast. I think we all have the roles we have because we're the best for them. And it's great that we as women, like you mentioned Karen on the desk, Karen is the staple of pre and post shows, especially on these ESPN Plus cards. She carries that ship. There's no teleprompter. There's nothing there to assist her except her knowledge, and obviously an incredible production team behind her. But for all of us, I think we're just trying to be the very best that we are with the opportunities we get. The UFC producers are really great about making sure, there are places and rooms for us to grow into, and we're always trying to do that. And so I would say, I only want all of our roles to grow because I know we're good enough to be able to have them grow. But I think right now it's very cool when you look at our sport. It's not like, oh, they have those jobs because they have to, fill a certain quota of there's this many females involved. It's no, we really do the best job, and I don't think that anyone looks at any of us and they're like, oh, well, it should be this person there. They look at us and say like, oh no, that's the right person, and we just happen to be women. So yeah. Good. Thanks, guys.
That did start out like a stand-up routine.
Oh, that's fine. Hello. Oh, here we go. You guys will have to excuse me. I just did a shot of Dustin Poirier's hot sauce, a whole shot of it. So my chest is burning right now. Yeah.
Did you talk about, I mean, same athletes, 6 months apart, right? I mean, how much of what we saw in January is a blueprint for what we're going to see on July? I mean, this is a random sport where chaos happens, right? But how much of that is a blueprint for what we're going to see on Saturday?
Well, we saw some chaos the first time. I mean, Conor looked pretty good coming out. Like, his boxing looked sharp. Dustin was able to make those adjustments and catch him with the leg kicks. But I think we're playing too much into the leg kicks because, you know, that's just something that happened on the fly, and all it takes is like one or two to really change the dynamic of a fight. So I think we're playing a little bit too much into that. Thanks, RJ. But I think we're playing a little bit too much into that. I think that we're going to see the real Conor and the real Dustin come out. I think we're going to see takedowns. I think we're going to see a fight. I think it can become a dog fight at times. And if it does become a dog fight, that certainly favors Dustin.
Yeah. I was going to ask you, I mean, so much of the discussion has been the leg kicks, but I mean, you look at things on a deeper level. So when you look at that fight, what do you see that was the key?
Well, I mean, if you look at the first fight, Dustin came out with leg kicks in the first fight. Conor was able to avoid them with his movement. I think if Conor comes out with his movement this time, it's a completely different fight. But I think the key to that first fight really was the fact that I think Conor might have been a little shook that Dustin was able to take his punches. You know, Conor relies on being able to hurt people. He's, in a sense, he's kind of a bully in fights. He relies on being able to hurt people and get people shook. And the fact that Dustin was able to take his punches and continue to fight him and stand up to him, I think that shook Conor a little bit. You saw in his face, he was a little shook.
Obviously, you know a thing or two about Dustin. What is it about him right now? I mean, he's been doing this game for so long, but it feels like he's peaking right now. Like there's something special about him right now. What is it about Dustin right now that's making him so successful?
Well, what it comes down to is really confidence and being comfortable in your own skin. And if you look at all the great champions, they're very comfortable in their own skin. They're very confident in what they do. They're very confident in what they can't do. They know what they're capable of, and they know what they're not capable of. Right now, we're looking at a very confident Dustin Poirier, a very relaxed Dustin Poirier who's very good at what he does, and he knows what he's good at, and I think he's going to get to it tomorrow night.
Yeah. Last thing I have for you, let's talk about Conor. You know, his mentality, like this thing that he has in his head and what he's done. I mean, is that capable of overcoming maybe any technical deficiencies or any step, you know, that he may be behind at this point? Like, is there something special within him that can will that, or is that not possible for the mentality to overcome the physical?
Well, it takes two to tango. Like, part of the allure with Conor McGregor used to be the mind games that he would play with people. So that would give him extra confidence, but it would also kind of zap some of the confidence of the other guy. And it takes two to tango. So the fact that it's not working against the other guy really can have an effect. And I don't think an effect in a good way for Conor. I think Conor needs the other guy to kind of fall into his trap in order for it to work. I mean, if you look at when he fought Diego Brandao, I mean, he had Diego Brandao wanting to kill him, and he made so many mistakes. When he fought Aldo wanted to kill him, and he made a crucial mistake. He gets guys to make mistakes with the mind games. The fact that it's not working now could be an issue.
Dean, over here.
Yes, sir.
Looking at the Greg Hardy Tai Tuivasa fight, you've obviously worked with Greg a lot in the past. His comments leading up, he's calling out Deontay Wilder, Cyril Gane, Derek Lewis, and everything, and he still has to get through Tai first. So if you're his coach, are you just telling him to, like, let's cool off that talk during fight week, or are you just letting Greg be Greg?
Well, you know, you let a fighter be the fighter that they are. I mean, again, it comes down to confidence and knowing who they are. And if that's who they are, you got to let them be who they are. I mean, it seems a little far-fetched for him to be talking about Deontay Wilder or anybody else because he's got a tough guy in front of him. So let's see what he does. Let's see how he reacts. Like, I haven't worked with Greg since his last fight, so I don't know, but I know he's working with Rashad Evans, and Rashad Evans is a genius. His track record is proven. So let's see what he comes up with. I know Greg is a very fast learner, so let's see how he does.
Speaking of Rashad, he said he wants to come out of retirement, possibly fight Logan Paul in boxing. What do you make of that whole situation?
Listen, as long as these guys come out of retirement and do those, you know, these crazy boxing matches, that's fine. But when they come out of retirement and do bare knuckle, to me, that's, you know, bare knuckle is a graveyard for MMA fighters. It's crazy. Just don't let them come out and do that.
And then further down the card, Chris Montinho gets the short notice fight against Sean O'Malley. He said up until June, he was working 80 hours a week at a paint company, then he quit, and now he's fighting Sean O'Malley on a Conor card. So if you're his coach, how do you prepare him mentally, or do you even watch tape on Sean O'Malley? Or are you just getting him ready for the best Chris possible out there?
Tell him to pray.
Dan over here.
Yes, sir.
Dan, at my house, we love the weigh-in shows. They're a big staple, but I want to know, why is there always so much cheating on those, man?
Because Daniel Cormier is a cheater. Everyone knows this. That boy will cheat on anything. Daniel Cormier is a bona fide cheater.
Did he cheat today?
Did he cheat today? Come on now. From the moment the camera was on to the moment it was off, the boy was cheating.
On a more serious note, a couple months ago, we spoke with one of your athletes, Jillian Robertson, and asked what makes Din Thomas different as a coach. And she said that compared to other coaches, he doesn't really teach us much, one size fits all, as much as what works specifically for you. That seems like it's very simple, but she said that's something just very special to you. Why do you think that's not more common in coaching?
Well, because it's not more common in coaching, because the dynamic of the structure of the way MMA has always been has been a team environment. And in a team environment, there's a big room with a lot of people. So what you do is you kind of cast a big net and the cream will rise to the top. And that's how you get the good fighters in the big gyms. But for me, it's never been about having a big gym and finding out who was the best in the gym. To me, it was about relationship and developing fighters, which is why I split from American Top Team, and I'm only working with Jillian and a few other fighters so that I could have a relationship and try to develop them. And in order to do that, it's a lot of work, a lot of scientific work in terms of study, analysis, and really trying to put it together for them.
Thank you.
Way
In the back.
Hi there, Din. So a couple of years ago, we saw Dana induct Vinny Pazienza into the Nevada Boxing Hall of Fame, someone that you know. Vinny's someone who just never seemed to get his flowers, even though he's a 5-time champion. Who in UFC do you think that people need to be paying attention to now and actually giving their flowers to? Seem to fly under the radar a little bit in these big fights.
To be honest with you, I'm going to tell you, I think Kamaru Usman is that guy. I think that he's often overlooked, but I think he's a great fighter. I mean, he's been able to beat everybody they put in front of him, and each time it's been more impressive. And the fact that everybody's saying that Wonder Boy is the hardest matchup for him is a discredit to Usman's ability to really adapt in fights and be a better fighter. So I think that's a discredit to Usman to say, oh yeah, Wonder Boy is the key to beating him. But we don't know that because they've never fought. And when has Usman not been able to adapt to an opponent and put him away? So I don't even know where that basis is. So I think Usman is the guy right now who I think people sleep on the most.
I have a question.
Oh, not the pink suit guy.
We got a radio show to do in about 20 minutes.
That is true. Let's do a show.
Dean Thomas, do these people know that you were a barber in high school? Have you ever given a haircut as good as the one that you got yesterday? And which member of New Edition from 1985 would that cut be? Robbie, Bobby, Ricky, Mike, or of course, Ralph Tresvant?
Listen, I'm a sex symbol. That goes without saying. And I look like Bobby Brown right now with the little part. So yeah, I'm going with Bobby Brown. Candy girl, na-na-na-na. Look at the girl in the back dancing right behind John Morgan, getting it. Yeah. Is that it? Thank you, everybody. I appreciate you.
Okay, hello. It's me, Daniel. How you guys doing? I'm here. It's time for my media appearance.
We appreciate it, DC. Hey, talk to
I'm
me about-
here. It's Daniel. Hi, guys. So,
Daniel, talk to us about the matchup, a trilogy fight, like the mindset of a trilogy. Like, what are the potential, positives, potential negatives when you're that familiar with another opponent?
I did an essay today, and we put it on the weigh-in show, all about trilogies. If you watch it, it speaks to the mindset going into that third fight. It's the most nerve-wracking thing you've ever done. You're scared. You're wondering what could have changed. But the reality is, there are not many secrets left, right? Only small details will change what happened between fight 1, 2 to fight number 3. So, but I know both of these guys, very nervous, on edge, and now the mindset is shifting to tomorrow night. All the other stuff, the trash talk, the yelling, the screaming, they'll see each other this afternoon, and then all systems go to tomorrow.
Yeah. You kind of touched on it there, but how much can change in 6
I'm
months?
burping because, like, listen, I'm burping because Larsenko and I just freaking, we shotgun beers on the back for the championship of our weigh-in show. So, like, the burp is just coming out. I've been feeling like I need to vomit for the last 30 minutes.
Sounds like my kind of show right there. So how much can change in 6 months, right? You said, I mean, there's no secrets left, but I mean, especially this late in somebody's career, you know, I mean, not that they're at the end of it, but I mean, they're developed as martial artists, right?
Well, here's the issue. For what I feel was the biggest problem for Conor, it feels like there should have been more time for him to go and address those leg kicks. I know that he's got a great team. They will get him prepared. But the only reason that happens, right? Conor doesn't generally fight southpaws, right? Not many of them are southpaws. So because Dustin's a southpaw, he can land those outside kicks. Generally, those kicks will be coming to the inside from a conventional fighter. 6 months to learn to check and defend those low leg kicks seems fast. If you're not going to doubt anybody, though, it's Conor McGregor. When he left, after he fought Habib's a wrestler. He completely wiped out Donald Cerrone, right? Before Habib, it was a long time since he had fought. I mean, who did he fight before Habib? I mean, he didn't even lose. He fought Eddie Alvarez. He had won the second belt. So it was a long time between fights. When he left, those low leg kicks weren't even nearly as used as they are today, especially from guys from American Top Team. It's like their staple. So I believe that low leg kick is going to be difficult to change in such a short period of time.
Yeah. Realistically, like, it's a fun storyline to talk about, you know, full arena, Las Vegas, T-Mobile. Does it factor into this fight? Because I wonder, because Conor seems to perform under bright lights like nobody else, but you've actually been in there. Is that just a media fun selling storyline, or does it really matter?
No, you're spot on. For a guy like Conor McGregor, this matters. And Dustin Poirier doesn't like it. You could see, even in his words, right? He said, people throwing beer at you, saying crazy shit. Like, he understands what's in front of him, because every time he goes in front of a crowd, they're booing him. The last time he fought in front of a crowd, he fought guys like Max Holloway, he fought Khabib, but in those spots where he was the guy that was in foreign territory, where the crowd was completely on the opposite side, he didn't really do as well, right? Khabib in Abu Dhabi got finished. He fought Conor in Vegas. People loved him. Those moments where people are so stern in one side, he doesn't like it. When he fought Max Holloway, we're in Atlanta, right? It was like 50-50. In most places, it's 50-50, unless you fight those massive stars. And Dustin recognizes that. That's why he's like, I'd rather do this thing in the Apex or on Fight Island where there are no fans, because you don't feel like, I've dealt with it. I dealt with it with Jones. It really sucks whenever you don't know what you did to make these people turn against you, and then you got to go out and fight this guy.
In fairness, you never really did anything. I don't know why people did.
Yeah,
it was
it's
weird.
crazy. It's crazy.
Lastly, Conor's future. Does it hang in the balance here? Because it's interesting, right? I mean, the guy's a superstar, celebrity. Like, I think people are going to show up to watch him fight no matter what he does. But do you feel like this is key to where he goes moving forward?
It's important competitively, right? But notice the difference, right? In some of these recent fights that we've had, I know on multiple occasions recently I've said, this is do or die. And I want to say that it's do or die in this situation, but then I was reminded very recently that it's not, because it's Conor McGregor. Even if he loses Saturday, he goes and fights another guy. He goes and fights Nate Diaz a third time. Say he wins a fight over a guy like RD or something, he's right back in the title picture, because he will hang around the title picture for as long as he's in this sport. One other big thing for Conor to really reel in this fight is the left hand. He believes in it so much that he goes all out when he throws it. But that's when Dustin is landing that counter right hook, right? So it's like there's a lot of little things that McGregor has to try to fix if he's going to win against an absolute dog in Dustin Poirier.
DC, In an interview with ESPN, Kavanagh said that in the sparring for the last fight with Dustin, Conor only ever did it in boxing gloves and with the headgear and stuff like that. For this one, it's only been MMA gloves. Can something that little in preparation make a difference in the fight?
Well, here's the thing. When we would use MMA gloves, we used them very rarely at AK. We had a tendency to hurt each other, first off, but you can't really punch hard. You're not trying to knock out your partners with small gloves. And so when guys would use them, we're like, oh, well, you're not training hard. Not the case. Max Holloway said he doesn't even spar anymore, which is absurd. So I think with the way the sport's evolving, you can train in that way and still feel prepared. I think he'll be more prepared for a mixed martial arts fight opposed to what he felt going into the second fight.
And speaking of hurting each other at the gym, did you try and set up a fight between Tai Tuivasa and Justin Willis?
Oh, no. Tai Tuivasa came to the gym. He reached out. Justin Willis had gone to AKA, you know, so, ATT. So, listen, man, as the world goes, the wheel turns. You know, one guy leaves, we just get another one. It never stands still, you know. So, I thought those guys were going to fight each other. It was Justin wanted to fight Tai, and Tai wanted to fight Justin, but Justin isn't in the UFC anymore, so I don't know when or if it'll happen.
Yeah, it's because Tai said that you were trying to hook something up at the gym when you first joined.
Well, just like in the sense that if you guys hate each other so much, then we're here, right? We got boxing gloves, we got headgear, we can protect you as much as we can. Because for me, if I had a problem with somebody anywhere, I'm like, hey, you want to come to AKA? We can handle it, you know? That's what people misinterpret. And not only with me, but a lot of these fighters. I can speak with 100% certainty that Dustin Poirier, yesterday at the press conference, you know how those guys were getting at each other? Mm-hmm. Dustin would fight Conor at that press conference, or in the street, basketball court, your local park, wherever. He's from where I'm from. I know what his mindset is. Conor will fight him anywhere. Khabib Nurmagomedov will fight you anywhere. So people need to be very careful in the way you approach these fighters, the real ones. Because it doesn't matter. So when Justin and Tai wanted to get at each other, hey, we'll protect you where we can. We'll put elbow pads. You can even elbow each other. Put some elbow pads on you so you don't get cut. And go fight.
How do you think about Tai in Greg Hardy?
I like Tai. He's a good guy, man. Hey, he's crazy as all can be. Tell you that much. He's fun. Tai Tuivasa's out of his mind. He's a fun guy. I like him. I consider him a friend. He's got a tough fight in Greg Hardy. When he came to AKA, he was doing wrestling, right? Trying to work on that aspect of his game. And remember when Tai came to AKA, he was on a losing streak. He's won 2 in a row now, and he hasn't been training with us. Let's not make more mistake about it. Back with his team. When he came, just that change-up refreshed him. And now he's back on the run, but he's got a tough fight. And some of the lessons that he learned in that gym may be useful in a fight against Greg Hardy. I can't really help him or speak to it because I'm working, but it's a tough fight. And Greg is A-plus athlete, massive. I mean, dude was the last guy to weigh in. And now he has a great training camp around him. He's working with Rashad full-time, individually. So he's Rashad's project. Let's see how it looks tomorrow.
Last thing for me, how was Kevin Holland's wrestling training going?
So Kevin Holland's wrestling training was going great, right? He came a couple times, worked. And then Edmund Shabazian came to AKA, and Kevin's like, I want to fight everybody. So if Shabazian's there, I can't go, DC. So it's more like, you know, what did they call what we were doing last year in the pandemic where you would meet people?
Oh, social distancing?
Yeah, like it's more like a distance training, right? So he'll text me and we'll talk about it. I love Kevin Holland. He's so fun, got such a great personality. But Shabazian's a great kid, and he works hard. He's in the gym every day. Rhonda came to see me in San Jose for something we did together, a project. And she goes, I want to send little Ed up to San Jose. I go, you call him Little Ed. I was like, he's not little. And she goes, yeah. And she said, he's going to come for months. He's not going home. He lives in a hotel close to the gym, and he is just grinding it out. And the dude is impressive, man. And I think he'll be better the next time you guys see Edmund. Because what he did at Glendale Fight Club with his coaches, and then you couple what they do with the help that he's getting at AKA, he's going to be tough.
Thanks, man.
DC right here. If you're Chris Montigno's coach, he takes his fight against Sean O'Malley on such short notice. He said he just quit his full-time job in June. How do you prepare for him? How do you prepare him to go from regional circuit, 80 hours a week at a paying
Fighters do that too much. Well, it's a no-lose situation for me. So then you lose. You can't be a no-lose situation. Every fight's a win. You have to win.
Do you think the co-main event is flying under the radar a little bit between Stephen Thompson and Gilbert Burns?
I think every fight's flying under the radar because of Conor, right? Like, I mean, when it's such a massive difference in what the city feels like when he fights, or anywhere. I mean, from fight 1 in Abu Dhabi to fight 3, I don't know who was there. I know he was there, but like, you were there. The fans in the arena, the excitement, the energy, it was just completely different because of who Conor McGregor is. And now you got a guy that beat him last time. Everything's flying under the radar, but this is a fantastic fight. And I know that those guys will deliver fireworks.
Finally, what do you make of this whole drama with the heavyweight division right now, with the introduction of the interim title only 3 months after Francis Ngannou won?
You know, when it comes to Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, pay-per-view, no title. Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier, pay-per-view with no title. But outside of that, since we've gone to ESPN, every fight that headlines a card has a title. It's just the way it works. Hell, we made a title. They made a title at the BMF. They made one to go to Madison Square Garden a couple years ago. So it's like, that interim title is essentially a #1 contenders fight. It doesn't change much. That doesn't hurt Francis's accomplishments. I understand. People are like, why an interim title? I just think that it's still a #1 contenders fight to see who fights Francis next. That's how I feel. I mean, I don't know what the decision making behind it was, but it's just a #1 contenders fight. Interim champion will fight the champ. But I mean, even for every one of you, right? When that poster comes out, there'll be 2 belts, right? It'll seem like champion versus champion, and you'll be more excited because if Cyril Gane wins, if Cyril Gane can beat this Derek Lewis, being from Francis's old camp, the coach building up another prospect to knock off the guy that left him. I mean, look at the story. We can write a movie about stuff like this, right? It's like it just makes sense in that regard. It doesn't take away from what Francis accomplished. He's the heavyweight champion of the world. Nobody should lose sight of that. He's the baddest man on the planet.
Hold on, one quickly. You said that pay-per-views normally have the title at the top of the card. Amanda Nunes and Juliana Pena was on that card already. Do you think it was just a matter of they wanted Derek Lewis
You
on the
got
top
Derek
in
Lewis
Houston?
in Houston, right? You're going to sell out the arena. Derek Lewis is a guy that people like to watch. You know, I know it. I fought him. And when I fought him, I could feel the excitement in New York City, right? So, and it was only 3 weeks. And I could see people were excited about the Black Beast. So, yeah, title fight, Derek Lewis in Houston, it all works.
DC, to your right.
Yes.
Back here.
In the back?
What's going on?
What's up, buddy?
So you've been on in a feud before where the rivalry is very heated. We've seen fighters manufacture hate towards another fighter to gas themselves up. And when somebody's not engaging, it gets really difficult. Do you see that in Conor, that he's kind of manufacturing disgust of Dustin Poirier to maybe find the familiarity in how he fights?
I honestly don't think it matters that much. I think that's one of the more overstated things in the whole build-up to this fight. Nice Conor versus angry Conor. How much different is Conor going to fight? He's going to fight. When he gets in the octagon, he's going to fight to the best of his ability, whether he's mad or whether he's happy. I did not like the build-up to the last fight. I don't need to see these guys Conor holding his hot sauce and him holding Conor's liquor. I don't need it. This is more fun, but I truly believe that ultimately it's going to come down to who is better on the night of the fight. So manufacturing hate, being angry, being happy, liking the guy, it doesn't matter. I love Dan Henderson. I would have ripped his head off if I could. I hated John Jones. If I could have won, I damn sure would have won. You know, it's like, it doesn't really matter. You're going to fight to the best of your ability whenever you get in there.
What are your thoughts on Sean O'Malley? Because it seems like he's a highly marketable fighter. He goes viral with his knockouts, and it seems like he has something that a lot of other fighters do not.
He's got it. He's got it. Like, people tune in for him. They like him. And because of that, if he gets past Chris Moutinho, he'll get a big-name fighter, and his path to the elite of the division will be a bit shorter. Because ultimately, this is not only about the fight. It's about the business. And it seems like there's business in Sean O'Malley, right? People like him. People tune in. And he's got a great style for fans to really kind of latch onto.
Daniel, one hates to bring up a sore subject, but it's the Olympics time again.
Yes, yes.
Now, I remember a few years back when you and I talked about it.
Well, you look a little different now. I mean, wow.
Time has passed.
I mean, I was like, wait a minute. He looks familiar. You got a little beard going. Look at my man, Ben.
Neither one of us are light heavyweights anymore.
No, we are. We are definitely not light heavyweights. What's up, Ben?
But I remember when we talked about it before you'd become, UFC champion.
I literally thought you were John Vellante sitting back there a little bit. When I first looked over, I go, well, what the hell is Vellante doing in here?
I'll take it.
That's my man, Ben, over here. What's up, Ben?
I'll take it gladly. Back to my question.
Okay, get on task. Sorry, I'm drunk. I'm drunk, sorry.
When we would talk about it, and I remember we were at dinner with some of the AKA guys, and Luke was needling you about the Olympics and the weight cut stuff and everything, and you were saying, man, that stuff still bothers me. And I wonder now, like, now that you've gone on and accomplished a whole lot of other stuff in MMA, and you've gotten more time and perspective on some of that Olympic stuff, when you see everybody ramping up every time it's Olympics time and you think back on it, do you still feel bothered by it, or do you have a different perspective on it now?
No, still bothers me. It'll be with me till I'm gone, right? Not getting the rest from the Olympic Games. That'll never change, right? I made a lot of mistakes to put myself in a situation where I not only let down myself, but my country, my family, USA Wrestling, Oklahoma State, so many people. So that'll never change, right? But being able to do 205, 6 pounds lighter, show the discipline that I should have had in wrestling, it does really help me deal with it a little bit better. But it's a harsh reminder that I literally just did things wrong to put myself where I was back in Beijing.
Well, do you ever think back on it now and go, well, that was for free, basically?
And I mean, maybe that's what it was, right? Like the difference in the compensation between the UFC. I mean, listen, for some of the checks the UFC gave me, I would have done anything. I would have done a lot of things to get to the weight. So, and I have done a lot of things to get to the weight. I'm thinking about it. But I should have had more pride in the accomplishment. And I think that I took it for granted. And as a young man, I made a mistake. And I can only try to do better every single day going forward to ensure that I help a kid or another wrestler not make the same mistakes.
Thank you.
Daniel, over here on your right.
Yes.
So just 11 months ago, in the room right next to us,
yeah,
you had your last ever fight. Standing
Yes.
here now, does it feel like it's been that long?
Man, listen. 6 years ago, I won my first championship. Time flies so fast. I mean, this guy became me. These two guys right here, Dave and Chris, we became best friends. Like every 3 months, we were on a media tour. I mean, I see these guys here now. When I do this, time goes so fast. And the moment I retired, my life got so busy outside of the octagon that I haven't really had a chance to sit back and think back on, oh, it's been a year already. Yeah, it sucks, coming back and not being able to accomplish what you wanted at the end. But it is what it is, and you just kind of move forward. That's what I've always done.
Yeah, and being here at the Apex all the time, and obviously with all your broadcasting duties you have, does it ever give you that itch to come back just a little bit?
To fight?
Yes.
No. Dude, it's hard. Fighting is hard. Like, it's really, really hard. I mean, to be able to compete is so special. I love to compete. It's what made me who I am, but I also understand if I can't put myself in the best position to win, I won't do it. You guys all know me. You've seen me do this thing. I mean, I had no time at the bottom. I was always at the top. Fought in 10 straight championship fights, right? Like, if I can't prepare myself, I won't do it. And I just don't feel like where I am today in terms of the injuries, the wear and tear of the title fights. You know, people talk about 5-round camps versus 3-round camps. They're a real thing. And going through all those 5-round camps back to back and literally breaking myself down to the bare bones to make sure that when I was in there, I was ready. It's such a lasting toll, man. I get up in the morning. I literally stretch every morning for 30 minutes before I can even get up and leave because of all the, 15 years old, I'm in my first world team and represented the United States of America. So for 27 years, I did sports at the highest level, so I'm good.
And last one from me. Before you came out, we talked to your friend Max Holloway and Dean Thomas, and they had some things to say about you, about the weigh-in show.
They're liars.
They say that you're a notorious cheater.
They scandalize my name is what they do.
Is it fair to call Daniel Cormier a cheater?
Yeah. You know, there's a famous saying in regards to cheating while trying to win. I think you guys have all heard it before. If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying. I'm trying to win. I roped Laura Sanko, 105-pound woman. She beat me in a spelling bee, which you would imagine I've lost every single one of them. So I told her if she could outrace me drinking a beer, then she's the champ and I would be the champ. She's like, okay, I'll give you a challenge because you test that ego of anybody, right? They get it. I crushed her. Now I got the belt going into the next weigh-in show. So sure. They also caught me with, we're trying to spell Jalgus, Jalagulis. And I may have been caught with the name sheet under my shoe, under the desk. I mean, I may have been caught with the name sheet under my shoe. But hey, it is what it is, man. I'm trying to get my hand raised.
All right,
Hey, Daniel, in the back.
What about the golf?
In golf?
Yeah.
Where'd that come from? In golf?
Did you guys practice the night before Jacksonville?
Yes, I have practiced. I cheat a lot on the golf course, not so much anymore. I got a golf simulator in my house now, so it makes it easier for me to practice and improve. All right, last one, guys.
All right, Daniel, in the back. You were just saying before that maybe, genuine animosity between fighters won't necessarily impact the outcome, but I wonder...
No. I'm talking about whether or not you're trying to make it, like, not real, right? Like, when it's genuine, it does affect it, right? Because then you can't control the emotion.
Yeah, can you talk about that? Because I'm also wondering how, to what extent that kind of tension might benefit some fighters over others.
I think for Conor, he wants to have that... I mean, he tried to kick Dustin yesterday, right? Like, he wants to have that friction. He kicked Dana. I mean, Dana said he got kneed. But, I mean, he wants to have that friction, right? Because some people do better in the chaos. But real emotion can really hinder you. And that happened to me against Jones, right? In the first fight, so emotional, that energy dump. Second fight, the guy beat me. But it's like you have to really kind of reel it in to ensure that you don't do too much. But McGregor lives in the chaos in regards to fighting. So this whole build-up has been exactly what he's wanted. You guys, I mean, I'm really hurting over here. I got to keep it rolling. I got to go home and get another one. No, I'm just kidding. Stop.
No,
All right?
But yeah,
Yeah, good.
But he's right. He's sort of defining the terms of the engagement in that way, right? And so it's like
he is. Well, he's drawing emotion out of Dustin. Dustin isn't the one that's starting the arguments. Dustin isn't the one that's like starting the fights, right? But if you pay attention, when Conor grabbed the hot sauce, Poirier about charged him.
Yep.
Right? Then when Conor stood behind the desk on his side, Poirier was held back by Dana White. Now, here's the question, and this is why I'm so excited about the fights, right? We watch everything as analysts, right? So when I go and I watch the press conference yesterday, I'm like, man, this is some antics. So then I go back and I think, what? This seems like the Khabib press conference, right? I go back and I watch the Khabib press conference and he's so animated and he's so mad and he's so angry, but then he didn't fight well or as well as he could have fought. So is he taking himself too far in one direction, right? So it's like you're putting all these pieces together. And then you wonder whether or not Dustin, who yesterday did try to charge him a couple times. So then I go back and I watch him and Conor back in 2014 and think, is Dustin mad again? Is Dustin emotional again? So it's like there's so many factors that go into what happens on Saturday night inside the octagon. Dustin came and watched this thing called The Man in the Arena. You guys haven't seen that thing. Dustin voiced it. Watch it. He almost started crying because The Man in the Arena is about the guy that goes out there and he puts himself on display to be judged, and he should not be judged by people that have not done it. This means so much to Dustin Poirier. Go watch that. Watch that essay that he voiced for the UFC. Watch and listen to the words and watch how he reacts to it. And then watch how those guys engage tomorrow night. Dude, this is the biggest fight of the year. Hands down, there will not be one bigger. And this is going to be so fun. Crowd's going to be crazy. There's going to be beer everywhere, thrown everywhere. Rogan's back, Anik's back, myself. Stephen A's here. I mean, everybody's mad about that, but why? Stephen A's up in here. I mean, this is the real deal, man. This is not only a fight anymore. It's an event, all right? So everybody strap your boots in, get ready for tomorrow night, and then let's go, all right? Bye, guys.
You want to wrap it up? Oh. All right.
Hey guys, you're having till 1 o'clock, 1 p.m.
Intoxicated and information that we get today. Keep it intoxicated. Make sure they stick around. Check back in at 4 p.m. Pacific. 17 weeks.
Oh yeah.
Mobile industry in Vegas. Blah. It's free. It's not. Watching them when they jump in. UFC 264. You heard DG. It's gonna be amazing. Stay tuned.
Thanks everybody for staying. Long stream. Appreciate the support, and we will be cutting out. See you at the ceremonial weigh-ins coming up, 4 p.m. Pacific time.
Oh, you think he does?